Oh, what a mess.
Hey, this is Neil Schneider from Meant to Be Seen. Welcome back to my messy basement. It has been much too long, no excuses. We definitely have to be doing more of these, and we will in the new year, so please accept my apologies. But nonetheless, Merry Christmas, happy belated Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, happy holidays. I'm really looking forward to 2018. We've got something special in store for you today. We got our hands on an Acer Windows Mixed Reality head-mounted display. We're going to review it, okay? I'm not just going to review this for you. We're going to talk about the software. We're going to talk about the content support. It's going to be a lot of fun, okay? So we'll be back with more right after this. It's time for our review of the Acer Windows Mixed Reality head-mounted display. That's quite a load full of words there. But anyway, now before I begin reviewing the Acer HMD, I just want to give you a heads up that this is all based on the Windows Mixed Reality platform. So if you were to go to a retail store, and I know Acer is one model, but if you were to look, go to a retail and you saw other HMDs based on the same platform, you'd probably find a lot of similarities. They'd have very similar tracking. The hand controllers would be the same. The software is 100% the same. There's a lot of consistency from one hardware maker to the next. And what's really exciting about this is, yes, of course, we're reviewing the Acer HMD, but there's a whole slew of manufacturers that are making compliant devices. So just some examples, of course, we know about Acer. There's Asus, Lenovo, Dell, HP. The list goes on. Okay, so this is really exciting stuff because we're not just talking about one particular manufacturer, we're talking about a whole ecosystem for virtual reality. So again, I think that's really exciting. Now, something that I noticed right off the bat is it's kind of unusual, is that when it comes to getting updates for the head-mounted display, it's not Acer, it's not the manufacturer that is sending the updates. What happens is, let's say you need a firmware update, which is the software inside the actual hardware. It's Microsoft that sends it. It's sent as an update, and it's done through Windows 10. It's all automated. It's not just about drivers. I'm actually talking about adjusting the software within the head-mounted display itself. I've never seen that before with other peripherals, so I thought that was very unique. So let me give you some quick specifications on the device. Let's start talking about Acer's HMD, okay? So first off, the pixel count, or the resolution, is a little bit more than what you see through other solutions like the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive. This supports 1440 by 1440 pixels, so 1440 pixels by 1440 pixels in each eye, which is a bit higher than what we've seen with other hardware makers. The refresh rate on the display ranges from 60 hertz to 90 hertz, and it depends on what you're connecting the HMD to that determines that, whether it's HDMI 1.4 or HDMI 2.0, and also the processing power of the computer that determines what will be displayed. But the point is, it does support 60 to 90 hertz refresh rate, which is important. Field of view, okay, not too bad, 95-degree field of view, all right, so that's a respectable number. And something that is, I'm going to say unique, okay, among consumer end devices, is it's got inside-out tracking. So what this means is this. So normally, previously, when we were talking about head-mounted displays by, like Oculus or the HTC Vive, they either required external cameras or laser emitters that were part of the process in determining, how the head-mounted display is positioned, how you're tracked positionally. Okay, so it was a two-part process. In this case, everything is handled, within the head-mounted display itself. It's not necessary to have extra equipment there to track what you're doing with this head-mounted display and with the hand controllers, which I'll get into a little bit later. So that's very advantageous. I mean, it's less equipment. In theory, it should cost less money to produce, and really, there's a convenience factor there. Now, it does support room scale, which means that you can walk around a room physically in your virtual reality environment. Connected to the head-mounted display is a 13-foot cable. Microsoft recommends a room space of no less than 5 by 7 feet. You can, of course, have a somewhat bigger space, but just keep in mind the cable is limited to to 13 feet. Officially, they do not recommend having any expansions. Like, don't expand the cable length, because it really apparently wasn't designed for that. But that's the official, on the Microsoft site, that's what they say. Now, this, in the case of the Acer HMD, it does come with a set of Windows mixed reality controllers, which of course I will talk about a little bit later. Now, the audio, something important here, okay? So I'll go into it a little bit later, but I made the mistake of not knowing, or not realizing, that the head-mounted display does not come with its own set of headphones or built-in microphone, okay? Instead, it has a 3.5 millimeter jack. Let me find it for you here, right here, okay? And this jack it's a single line that should be combined for both your microphone and your headphones. So if you're going to get a gaming headset, which you'll need for this, make sure that it supports a single jack, 3.5 millimeter, and you really want the jack. See, if you look at it, I'll give you a close-up look, but it should be like a 3-ring jack on the connector. If it's not, it means that it's only for audio, which is not what you need. You really need both the microphone and the audio to be fed through there. All right. Now, the way I tested this, I actually tested it on more machines, but the official testing machines in this case, I used an Asus G752VS virtual reality ready laptop computer, and I also used an NVIDIA-based desktop machine. In both cases, they were both running the GTX 1070 graphics cards, one mobile, one desktop. And there's a little bit of a story there, which I'll get into a little bit later. Some special requirements, things you need to be aware of before you even think of plugging this in. First, you're definitely going to need Bluetooth 4.0 or better support, okay? A lot of laptops, computers already support this, some desktops support this. If you don't have the support, don't worry about it. All you need to do is buy a very, an inexpensive, we call it a dongle. It's just a little USB thing you plug in, and it gives you instantaneous Bluetooth support, okay? You need that Bluetooth control support so that your controllers will work. You're going to be in trouble without it. I mentioned earlier about the headphones. Okay, so something to be aware of. You get a Bluetooth headset unless it has a support cable. Okay, so the support cable, again, it has to support a single jack, microphone, headphones into the same connection. If it's not that case, it's not going to work out for you. And the reason why you have to use a wired connection is because all the Bluetooth bandwidth is reserved for these controllers. Microsoft will not permit you to use a Bluetooth headset with the Acer HMD or any others, okay? So just to be aware of it. Now, as far as your computer horsepower is concerned, Microsoft promotes that it supports 2 classes of machine, the Windows Mixed Reality PC, which includes a modern CPU that has some graphics processing on it. Usually Intel supplies that. Or the Ultra PC, which is really what we think of when we're talking about Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive on PC, with obviously elaborate graphics and virtual reality and all the experiences we're really excited about. In my opinion, okay, I know the technology should work with an embedded graphics solution, like, that low-end PC. But really, the stuff that's exciting is at the high end. So if you're going to get a device like this, think big. You should be able to find a relatively affordable machine that could drive this. Now, something to think about as well is to really get the full experience, you're probably going to need something a little beefier than what you would get for an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive, because this does have more pixels flowing through it, okay, than you would be with the other solutions. And some of the software is more demanding as well for other reasons, which I'll get into a little bit later, okay? So the official spec, it's a GTX 980 series or better on NVIDIA. If memory serves, RX 480 series or better on AMD. The specs are on the Microsoft site. But again, try to get something beefier. As far as the setup is concerned, there are, in my opinion, there's only going to be two setups, all right? There are two setup experiences. The first setup experience is the experience you're most likely going to have, all right? What you're going to do is you're going to have a Windows 10 PC. You have to have a Windows 10 PC. All you're going to do is you're going to plug this USB 3.0 connector into your computer, and you're going to plug this HDMI connector into your computer, and it's, you know, the clouds will open up and everything will run perfectly. And in most cases, that's the way it's going to be. What's going to happen is Windows will automatically detect not just that you're connecting a head-mounted display, but which one. It's going to download the appropriate drivers to make things work, and you're going to go right into the Windows Mixed Reality experience and tutorial, and la-di-da, everybody's happy. So that's one experience. That's the experience most people are going to have. I had the other experience. In fact, I call this the Neil definitely got cursed experience. I'm going to share with you what happened. Okay, I had to tell somebody. Okay, so first off, my first attempt at this, plugged it into my VR-ready laptop computer, and it just, you know, it ran for a couple minutes, and then it would just immediately reboot. Like a few minutes in, it would reboot, and there was no solving it. So then I took it to another desktop machine, a beefier machine, and went through the detection process for setup, and said, uh-oh, your USB ports are wrong. We're not detecting the USB 3.0 ports. So that didn't work out. So then I took it to a third machine, and then it told me that the graphics card wasn't powerful enough. So finally, I did get something working, and when I did, I had all kinds of problems with the controllers. And the problems I had with the controllers is that they were, you know, I was losing signal. In one case, it looked as though I had two controllers in a single hand. It was a royal mess. It really was. And you know, and finally, just to add insult to injury, when I did realize that the head-mounted display did not have a microphone built in, having no headset was obvious, but the microphone I thought was built in. I was way wrong. You know, it was just adding insult to injury. I got I bought these Skull Candy grind headphones, which I'm happy with. It's got a microphone, Bluetooth. You know, it sounds good. And it came with a special cable that you use to hook up to your computer. But it wasn't the right cable. The only thing that was flowing through it was strictly the audio and not the microphone, which was driving me absolutely crazy because I was trying to talk to the interface and the interface was not listening to me. But once I realized what was going on, the solution was, you know, buying an extra cable through Amazon. But anyway, I'm just sharing the story with you. So this was my cursed experience. But here's the good news, and you know, and this is why I'm saying that you're going to have a very different experience from me, because 99% of this was my fault. First off, the laptop, you know, was defective. I had to actually get it swapped for a new one through a warranty exchange, and once I did that, everything was fine. The problem with the USB connectors, that when, you know, on the second machine, what I had to do was I had to uninstall the drivers, which were the latest version by the manufacturer, let Microsoft install its own drivers, and everything was fine. So that solved itself. You know, so and then so then the problem with the controllers, you know, the reason they were winking out and behaving so weird, and this is just a tip for you because you're probably going to go through the same thing, that on the desktop computer I had to use that little Bluetooth dongle, right, to add that support that wasn't there before. In my case, it was in the back of the computer. And what was happening was the signal was not getting through. So I just put it to the front of the machine and the front USB ports, and everything was A-okay. So, you know, if you're having a similar experience, that should solve it for you. So my nightmares will probably be your positive dreams. Okay, and then that's pretty much it. So we got everything solved. The technology works. So let's talk a little bit about the build quality. All right. First off, the Acer HMD, it's definitely lighter than the other solutions. It feels lighter than the Oculus Rift. It feels lighter than the HTC Vive. Right. What I really liked about the solution is that it has this flip lid in the front. All right, really good. So if I'm in virtual reality and I'm looking around, and maybe my wife's calling me, or I misplaced something on the desk, I need to grab the keyboard, I don't know where it is, just flip the lid and I can see the world around me without having to get out of the virtual reality experience, or taking off the whole gear. So that's a really positive, really convenient feature. Something else I really, really liked, I wear glasses, very obvious. These glasses, they aren't really that big. I mean, they're modern glasses, but they're not huge glasses. In the case of the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive, I can't wear these frames. All right, I can't wear them. I have to actually use an older pair, which is a different prescription, to fit in with the lenses. In this case, they fit in like a glove. All right, so the other thing too, which I thought was very positive, is I don't feel concerned that my lenses are going to get scratched while using this head-mounted display. It just seemed to, it really did a good job of accommodating my glasses, and I'm certain of other sizes as well. So again, very, very positive. The other thing that I liked is it's got a little bit of a thumb screw here for adjusting. Okay, so really what you do is very convenient, you just put it on your head and you adjust this screw right here, and you get the right feel, and you're good to go. Very quick. Now, there are some trade-offs, okay? First, it's light. I mentioned that it's a lighter head-mounted display than the other solutions. Well, the reason it's lighter, or one of the ways that it's lighter, is the choice of plastic, okay? So this definitely feels more fragile than the other solutions on the market. I also, I am seeing some wear and tear here. I mean, some of the seams are starting to separate a little bit. The glue is coming a little bit loose. So you have to take care of it. You can't just throw it around. The other thing is the controllers, okay? So I'll talk about the controllers in a bit more detail soon. You notice that they've got these rings. Each of them has these rings. It's solid right now, but I think that if I were to accidentally hit a wall, or hit the ceiling in my basement, something could crack. I mean, I haven't seen it happen, but I think it's a fair it's a vulnerability. I think that that something in the design, I think there's a vulnerability there that you have to be careful. Make sure you got enough space to work with, that you don't bump into things. Now another thing, okay, I think I mentioned this already with the audio. Yes, you got this jack, okay, you could get your own headset in, but you can't use Bluetooth. Remember, that Bluetooth is all reserved for the hand controllers. So not a big deal, right? You're just going to get a gaming headset. Well, let me show you what I got, what you have to contend with. So let's say we got the headset on. I'll get, I'll put on the headphones here. So suddenly I've got all this extra wiring here. So I've got, the microphones here. It's on, figure it's plugging in, and it gets very cumbersome very fast. I mean, it doesn't feel great, because the only thing that you have to tame the wires on this device is you've got this single clip on the side, so the two wires flow through it, and then you're on your own. And you can, like it does, it takes an extra couple minutes just to get things right, but just keep in mind, in a room scale where you're walking around, it would be good to have more wire control. So there are some things you could do. You could, twist tie your headphone cable and stuff, but even so, it still feels a bit cumbersome. I think the other solutions do a better job of getting the wires under control. So you may have to come up with something innovative on your own. Now, what about the experience? So this is the important part, right? So clearly a benefit of having higher resolution on the display panel is fine text, like small text is easier to read. Okay, so like sometimes some games they have some fine text, and well, it's definitely easier to read with this head-mounted display versus some of the other solutions in the market. Still, the increased resolution, it's not a dramatic effect. This isn't going to be the difference between having a modern 4K HD television and that 22-inch or 20-inch black and white 1980 television. Okay, it's not that dramatic a difference. So, have reasonable expectations. The other thing is, one of the big criticisms of modern head-mounted displays is something that they call screen door effect, where you could see the gaps between the pixels. So it's kind of like literally like a real-life screen door. You know, honest to goodness, I don't know why people complain about this so much. With modern head-mounted displays, it doesn't really bother me in the least. It's still present here, but you know, even with the Rift and the Vive, it didn't bother me in that scenario either. You know, I'm just saying it's still there, but it's really not a big deal at all. One more thing, I find in this case, when you move around, okay, when your head-mounted display moves around from side to side, you can see a little bit of shimmering. Okay, and what I mean by that is, as you move, you see a little bit of a kind of like a little bit of a ghost, that the phosphors or the elements in the displays are still refreshing as you're moving point to point. It's not serious. It's, you know, it's only noticeable if you really look for it, but it's there. The other thing is, and it's got nothing to do with how the imagery is placed on the screen. I find with these lenses, as you move around, you could, in your periphery, it gets a little distorted. So in the center, everything's crystal clear, but as you move and your eyes move side to side, in the periphery, you know, you can kind of see the curvature. It's a little bit different. Not a big deal. You know, very good result, but just, you know, just little elements there. Now this is the fun part. Okay, so the head-mounted display tracking. This is really unique. So in other solutions like the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive, it's a two-part solution. You either have external cameras, like, you know, one to three cameras, tracking where the head-mounted display is and where the controllers are, you know, and determining how they're, you know, where they are from a positional point of view. Or the other option is you could have these laser emitters, and based on how the lasers strike the device, calculations are done to determine how it's positioned in space. Okay. This is a completely different option. This is what we call inside-out tracking. There's two cameras, okay, or, you know, we'll call them stereoscopic cameras, and what they do is they analyze the room, and based on what they know about the room, they determine how the head-mounted display is physically positioned. How, you know, complete positional tracking. It picks up every nuance of how the device is being used. And what I can say about it is it's spot on. It really is. I mean, you put on the device, you walk about the room, you know, whatever movements you're going to do, I find it's really very good. It's competitive with the other solutions. In the case of room scale, I was able to walk around the room, no problem. Okay, it really wasn't an issue as well. And I do think it's a big plus that there isn't that necessity for having external cameras and laser emitters and hanging special equipment or lighting kits and the whole thing. If you're in a small space or an apartment, anything like that, or you need to do something portable, it's a big deal to have that inside-out tracking. Really big benefit there. Now, something I would have liked to see is, I mean, they have the benefit of these cameras. I don't know what they're actually capable of compared to a normal camera, but in the case of the HTC Vive, a feature I like is that it has a pass-through camera. You can see what's on the other side. I really like that when you approach boundaries, it's not just that you see a wall. Like in this case, it sets up boundaries so you can safely get around the room and know where your boundaries are. But what I liked about the Vive is it also has a camera that, you know, you could, if you get close enough, you'll see that an outline of a cable, or you'll see an outline of a table. It does things so that it's a little more safe as you go about the room without breaking the immersion. In this case, it doesn't have any such feature. These cameras, at least not yet, are not pass-through cameras, so they're not being taken advantage of in that way. It's something I would have liked to see. Now, let's talk a little bit about the hand controllers, okay? So these are the Windows mixed reality hand controllers. In the case of the Acer head-mounted display, they come with the device. I got to tell you, I really like the way they feel. Okay, I like the grip. It's actually comparable to the HTC Vive controllers. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. You've got a trigger here. You've got, oh, actually, I'm wearing it the wrong way here. You've got like a grip trigger underneath. I mean, there are comparables. they are competitive. Something I like about these controllers as well, in addition to the touchpad and the different triggers, you also have a joystick with its own press button as well on both controllers. So this I liked. I really like the feel of them, and the joysticks are a nice touch. What I didn't like about them is this big ring in the front. Okay, I know it's necessary so that the head-mounted display could track it, so it could see it in a positional space. But for me, in more ways than one, it was a bit of a problem. So I mentioned earlier that I think they're vulnerable. Like if I were to whack this on the ceiling by accident, I think that it's very possible that this could snap off. But the other thing is that in virtual reality, you're working with these pseudo hands, right? You could be gripping a weapon or a tool, or you might be working with your hands, though these are an extension of your hands. And what I found is when you get your hands close together, it's very easy for these things to bump against one another, and it's unnatural. It kind of gets in the way. So maybe in the future they could come up with another solution other than these rings, because I think that the content in itself might have to be designed to take this into account compared to the other solutions in the market. Now, other thing to be aware of, these use AA batteries, okay? So these are just alkaline batteries, but you can use rechargeable, so you're not throwing batteries in the landfill, and you'll get a lot of use out of them. Now, what about the tracking? Okay, so I mentioned earlier that the tracking for the head-mounted display is excellent when you're in that VR space. How is it for the controllers themselves? So just so you're aware, the way it works is the same way that similar to the way that the cameras analyze the room to know how you're positioned. Another responsibility of these cameras is to see how these controllers are positioned and where they're positioned. And when they are in sight, okay, of the cameras, it's spot on. Like it's really like there's little to no latency, and it just works. Okay, very clean. However, if you drop your arms by the wayside, or the controllers are out of sight, things fall apart pretty quickly. And what happens is it tries to extrapolate where your arm is or where it should be. It's not perfect. And it takes an instant that when you bring it back into sight to recover, okay? So I find that some virtual reality games that were not designed for this and directly behave a little bit strangely. So I'll give you an example. Star Trek Bridge Crew. It's not designed for Windows Mixed Reality. In that case, I was using a Steam VR plugin, that kind of adds compatibility to Windows Mixed Reality, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But what happened in that case was you're on the bridge of a starship, you're in the captain's chair, you have full control of your hands, you're able to interact and accurately play the game. However, one of the features of the game is you have elbows, okay? So with other controllers, it does a really good job of extrapolating where your elbows are relative to your controllers or your hands, and it looks quite good. In this case, I found that the elbows were in all kinds of places. It really didn't do that great a job of extrapolating, probably because it didn't have the same information that's provided by the other controllers. Like the dynamics are a little bit different. So just something to be aware of. So let's talk about the software support. I mean, we've been talking about the hardware. Now we're going to go into the Microsoft side of the equation, okay? Because this Acer, I think, has very little to do with this. So when you get into Windows Mixed Reality through Windows 10, the first thing you're going to see is the Cliff House, and it's this, it's a 3D environment. Okay, it's called a 3D virtual reality environment, and there are all kinds of customizations you can do. You could put objects in the environment, and if you see stuff, you could grab it and resize it and customize it. There's a movie room, so you could watch movies on your virtual reality big screen TV, and you could buy movies there as well. They don't miss a chance to sell you something. And there's also an interface that you could load up your Windows Mixed Reality applications. And by the way, in that Windows Mixed Reality, there really is a short list of applications from your Windows desktop. Okay, you're not going to be able to run every Windows program in VR, from that interface. Okay, But what I did like, ironically, was the desktop screen. I mean, I know you could do this with the HTC Vive, and I think Oculus is doing this too, if I'm not mistaken, is that you could load up, or you could have your actual 2D desktop screen in virtual reality. And you could run things on that desktop screen, which is really, really cool. And frankly, it was my favorite interface out of all the interfaces. So what's my reaction to this? Well, I think these virtual reality workspaces are cool in the movies, not as effective in real life. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people like them and they're enjoying them, and I don't want to take away from that. For me, it slows me down. I just want to get into my applications. I want to get into my game. I want to get into my applications, and I just want to go, go, go. So I would be grateful if that, if they could come up with an additional interface. I mean, you could have your full 3D virtual reality interface, but for folks like me, I'd really be appreciative if they could just come up with like a standard 2D interface, something very simple, boom, 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 and you're into your applications. Because I have a couch in real life, and the other stuff, it just kind of gets in the way for me. Now, that's the OS, okay? That 3D environment is kind of like your operating system in Windows for virtual reality. But let's talk about the available content. So right off, I have to tell you, when it comes to Windows mixed reality, the content choices are very limited. You have a couple of flagship titles that you'll know them when you see them. But the other stuff, it's pretty light. I mean, they have a list of titles and stuff, but most of it you're not going to know, and it's not going to be. I don't think it's really high value stuff. But that said, I expect we're going to be seeing a lot more, hopefully in the new year. But when it comes time to buy content, like when you have to choose where to get your content, my advice, even though there's fewer content choices right now, when content is available, I recommend buying it in the Microsoft Store. Or, because it would be, Windows mixed reality compatible. And I suppose there's other places you could get content, but make sure directly it states that it's Windows mixed reality compatible, because the performance for sure is going to be better, and it's just going to fit within that mixed reality environment. It's just going to work for you, and I'm going to support that with some more details shortly. Now, what I was able to try, because my content choices were limited, there was a Ghostbusters experience which came with the device. It's nothing to write home about. It's all of 5 minutes, but it's pretty cool. You go in, you get a tutorial of the Ghostbusters headquarters. The graphics looked really good. The interaction was easy enough. It was a pretty good demo of the head-mounted display on its own, okay, but there really wasn't much there. I got my hands on Space Pirate Trainer, which was coded for Windows Mixed Reality. That was great. That was really a good choice for this, because the nature of that game is you're on a deck and you're shooting at incoming ships and robots, and it really worked for the Acer HMD because the controllers are in front of you. You're never really losing sight of the controller, so the tracking did an excellent job. It's a fun game. It was also a good demo of room scale. I could easily duck and move about, no problem. It just was a good, seamless demo of what this solution is capable of. Now, there is another option, okay? There is a plugin available for Steam VR. Okay, so what it does is it takes existing Steam VR games and translates the API codes to something that Windows Mixed Reality will understand. Okay, so it's kind of an emulator, all right? But the point is that you could take existing games and get them to run on Steam VR. And some good news there is it is something that appears to be consistently updated. Okay, they have a beta channel that you could join and get fresh updates every so often. What were the results? Okay, I'd have to say that my results were very mixed. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about Star Trek Bridge Crew. It was playable. I was able to get through a couple missions, no problem. But again, the tracking introduced some anomalies as far as the elbows. It wasn't really the best translation out there. I tried the first-person shooter Onward. It's kind of like a military first-person shooter. very clunky. Like it was unplayable, because what happened was, I'd look around and slowly the screen would blank out every few instances. The performance just wasn't there to be able to effectively play. It wasn't practical. Another game I tried was Elite Dangerous. It was just incompatible, period. It was a flickering mess. That's how I would describe it. It was a flickering mess. The only thing I was able to run was Google Tilt Brush. I didn't have any problems with Google Tilt Brush. So that's, that worked out really well. Another thing I found, and I can't exactly prove it, okay? It's a theory. I have a working theory on this, is that when I was running Steam VR, I'm almost sure that the Windows mixed reality 3D environment was running in parallel, okay? So the computer was actually having to process two virtual reality environments at the same time, and it was costing performance. So I even ran FutureMark's VRMark, okay, to see how the computer's performance was while running Windows mixed reality, and it was about 40 to 50% less than what it would be had I not been in Windows mixed reality. So I can't prove it. Okay, but based on what I'm seeing, based on how the games play compared to the other solutions, I really think that the Windows mixed reality environment, which is taking in processing cycles, is eating away from the Steam VR games. This is why I'm recommending that when you're getting games for the solution, prioritize games that are coded specific for this versus Steam VR. I just think you're going to be happier. Now, anyone has proof or additional information, by all means share. This is based on just experimentation at my end. But also be aware, just to support my theory, if you go to the Microsoft website, you can get away with the GTX 980 series or better for Windows mixed reality. But for Steam VR, for the Steam VR plugin, they recommend an NVIDIA GTX 1070 or equivalent card or better. Okay, so they do acknowledge that you need more processing power to run that Steam VR plugin versus just Windows mixed reality on its own. So we'll see. Let's see how things unfold. Now, what about the value proposition? Okay, so Christmas is just around the bend. Okay, so right now I checked on Best Buy in the U.S. A current sale price that I saw was about $400. With controllers, so you get the Acer head-mounted display with two of these controllers. Now, if you're like me and you don't have a video game headset, figure a decent pair is going to run you about $50 US, give or take. Okay, so figure $450. All right, their pricing I think would have been great 4 to 6 months ago, because right now the Oculus Rift at the same time is about $380, and that too includes, in their case, they're including a pair of touch controllers. But the other thing is that they have a much bigger content library. I mean, they've had about a 2-year lead on this, so there's a lot more content in the Oculus world than there currently is in the Microsoft Windows mixed reality world. So if you look at things like that, Acer's kind of priced out of the market. Like it doesn't quite fit, with the VR ecosystem as it is today. Now, but there is some good news here. Okay, so I'm very confident that we are going to see additional developers supporting Windows mixed reality. I mean, why wouldn't they? Because if you think about it, if you just go through the list of supporters, Dell, HP, Acer, Asus, Lenovo, I'm sure there's HP, I'm sure there's more on the list. I think developers would be crazy to not support such a wide ecosystem, especially because it's backed by Microsoft directly. I really like the plug-and-play potential of this. So, that's another benefit to this solution that the others don't have quite the same way. I really do see a positive future for this. It's just that it's a little early in the game for them. For everything that Acer is in control of, their hardware is competitive. The tracking is excellent. the tracking for the controllers is good enough. Okay, I mean, for what it is, I think it's good enough. Sure, the software is buggy, the content is limited, but I'm also equally confident that it's going to get much better, probably within 2018. That's just my opinion, but I'm thinking in 2018 we're going to see a lot more support for this. Yeah, they are up against aggressive pricing right now for the holiday season. Let's see what 2018 has in store. Now, as for the scoring on this was actually difficult to score because Acer was responsible for the hardware, and I think Acer did a decent job with this. So I'm going to give Acer Direct for the head-mounted display a 7 on 10. However, the software, which Microsoft is responsible for, and that whole ecosystem, I'm going to give it a 5 on 10. Okay, but that score I really think is going to go up. And so I really see a promising future for this. So let's keep an eye on the Windows Mixed Reality ecosystem in the near future. And be sure to try this out at your retail. See what you think. I think you'll be pretty pleased with it. Anyway, we'll be back with more right after this. Thank you for visiting me in my messy basement. If you want to be a guest on the program, by all means, send an email to neilsmessybasement@mtbs3d.com. Happy holidays, and we'll be talking again soon.